So there's been a lot of Zora Neale Hurston slander on the internet for the last few weeks. Such slander will not be tolerated on my page. However, what I will do is read a passage from my Conjure Hooodoo Elder series over on my Patreon, where I discuss a little bit of my research on Zora Neale Hurston, which I started back in 2020. Okay? Um, so I'm going to just start here. Mama Zora, that's how she announced herself to me, at least. And that's how she's been remembered and called upon by those of us who came after her. There is a particular quality to her presence that practitioners recognize. The woman who went looking, who did not wait to be told, who walked into rooms that she wasn't supposed to enter and came back with what she found. She was born January 7th, 1891, in Notasulga, Alabama. The same Alabama that grounds this course, because I'm an Alabama hoodoo, and her family relocated soon after that to Eatonville, Florida, the first incorporated black township in the United States. Her father was John Hurston. He helped govern that town. She grew up understanding that black people could build and run their own world. That understanding never left her. She became an author, an anthropologist, a folklorist, and one of the central figures of the Harlem Renaissance. She published 4 novels, 2 major folklore collections, an autobiography, more than 50 short stories, plays, and essays. I'm doing the air quotes because my Conjure series is from an academic standpoint where I am giving the research in a way that a collegiate level student could do this research and do this study without having to be a practitioner. At me as a practitioner, I know the shit that she studied and researched and reported upon is from a real lived experience while also being only what you can share with non-initiated people. Okay? So when you see me do this, it's not because it's fake, it's because I don't believe in the fucking word folklore in regards to our traditional practices. That's what white people want it to be so badly. They want it to be fake. They want it to be magic. Okay? Folklore. She won a Guggenheim Fellowship. She studied under Franz Boas, the father of modern anthropology at Columbia University, and she died penniless in 1960 in a welfare home in Florida, buried in an unmarked grave. So for the girl on Threads who started this whole discourse about how Zora Neale did what she did for the fame and for the fortune and for the money and all this bullshit, she didn't make no motherfucking money. She got paid just enough money that they would pay a black woman to then call everything that she taught them folklore and fake. She had a huge beef with Langston Hughes and lots of other black famous people who considered her to be a sellout because they didn't know what the fuck she was doing. It wasn't for them to understand. It wasn't their destiny. So no, she didn't do what she did for money. She did what she did because that's what she was supposed to do. And if she had never did it, you would never know who the fuck she was. Continuing, okay. Alice Walker found her in 1973 and put a marker on her grave. The inscription reads, "A genius of the South." And she was. And she was also a woman working inside of systems that were not built for her, navigating the distance between what she knew as a practitioner and what she was being paid to produce as a scholar. Both things are true. Hold space for both. Part 1. Who was Zora Neale Hurston? This is the historical record. Zora Neale Hurston was born the sixth of 8 children to John Hurston, a Baptist preacher and a sharecropper who became mayor of Eatonville, and Lucy Ann Potts Hurston, a school teacher. Her mother died when Zora was 13, a loss that she described as defining rapture of her early life. She left home at 17, worked as a wardrobe girl for a traveling theater company, finished high school in Baltimore, and went on to study at Howard University. Barnard College, and Columbia University. She was the only black student at Barnard when she graduated in 1928. She studied directly under France Boas, who recognized her unique position as a black Southern woman with insider access to the communities that she would document. The Harlem Renaissance years. Hurston arrived in New York in 1925 and became the central figure of the Harlem Renaissance, a period of extraordinary cultural production by black writers, artists, musicians, and intellectuals. She was known for her wits, her storytelling, her refusal to perform, suffering for white audiences, and her instances on depicting black Southern life in its full complexity and humor. Some of her contemporaries, including Richard Wright and Alan Locke, criticized her for this. Their criticism reveals more about respectability politics than it does about the quality of her work. Between the late 1920s and mid 1930s, Hurston conducted extensive fieldwork in Florida and New Orleans, funded in large part by Charlotte Osgood Mason. Her fieldwork produced Mules and Men in 1935, a collection of folk tales and hoodoo documentation, and later Tell My Horse, which was published in 1938, which documented her time in Haiti and Jamaica. These two books are the most significant hoodoo and diasporic spiritual documentation that she produced. She received initiations from multiple hoodoo practitioners in New Orleans. She was, by her own account and by the account of those who initiated her, not merely an observer. She participated. She was asked by at least one practitioner to remain as a successor. She was Mama Zora before anyone called her that. By 1950, Hurston had faded from public view. She worked as a librarian, a maid, a substitute teacher. Her books went out of print. She suffered a stroke in 1959 and died on January 28, 1960, in the St. Lucie County Welfare Home in Fort Pierce, Florida. She was buried in an unmarked grave in the Garden of Heavenly Rest Cemetery. Alice Walker's 1975 essay, In Search of Zora Neale Hurston, in Miss Magazine sparked a revival of her literary reputation. Her work has been in print and growing in recognition ever since. Hurston's field work was conducted predominantly in Algiers and New Orleans during the late 1920s. She traveled to Mississippi River communities with a rigorous schedule and documented what she found with a detail and intimacy that could only come from someone who had been received, not merely tolerated, by the practitioners she worked with. She met and worked with 7 different hoodoo practitioners throughout New Orleans, each with distinct specialties. She did not observe from a distance. She participated in ritual. She received initiation from multiple practitioners. In at least one documented case, she was invited to remain as a successor practitioner, not a researcher, not a visitor, but a carrier of the work itself. This is not ethnographic detail. This is practitioner history. I'm trying my best to read this real fast so the video is not so long. Among the most significant of her encounters was with Luke Turner, nephew of Mary Laveau, the hoodoo priestess of New Orleans, born 1837, whose name and legacy run through the entire history of documented American hoodoo. Turner shared with Hurston the lineage and the knowledge that connected her directly to one of the most powerful documented practitioners in the traditionalist history. Mary Laveau was a voodooist, not a hoodooist. However, again, I am writing this series from an academic standpoint for people who are not practitioners. Hurston documented the logic of hoodoo practice with the precision and that distinguishes her from every white folklorist who attempted the same work during that period. She understood that the placement of objects mattered. She understood that ritual operated with specific relationships and context. She understood that what she was recording was not superstition but a functioning system of knowledge. That hoodoo section of Mules and Men remains one of the most detailed practitioner-facing accounts of New Orleans hoodoo ever published. For those of you who do not know, if you are new to my page, I'm Edwin Similore, the ancestors' favorite. Not your favorite hoodoo. However, I am a herbalist, a cultural architect whose work sits at the intersection of culture, spirituality, and historical exploration. So you will see all type of historical research on this page. from indigenous origins and documentation, lineage work as an Omo Egungun. And my favorite quote is, "The curiosity is the only way to learn. Comprehension is necessary to integrate." That's a quote by me. So I hope y'all enjoyed this. If you want to hear or learn or continue the rest of my Zora Neale Hurston lesson, it is available on my Patreon, which is also Egun Semilore. Um, Again, this is one story of my entire Hoodoo Elder series. So it's in my Conjure Ed collection on my Patreon, and this is just the second lesson in that series. So there'll be continuous more elders that I have on my roster to do lessons on. If you do happen to go and subscribe to my Patreon, I appreciate it. If you are subscribed to my TikTok, I still appreciate y'all. Y'all just be getting a glimpse and not the whole lesson.